All right. So in this episode, I kind of wanted to do a theme of successes, all the different successes that I've had in my 15 years plus of being a gym owner, personal trainer, online trainer, podcaster, and just pick the biggest wins, the biggest bang for the buck that I've discovered with different types of theories, training, supplements, nutrition, etc. So to start, I kind of want to go back to what I started with my original gym, Evolve Gym, and that was back in 2011. So let me take you there. So before we start, I wanted to show you my SKOOL community I'm always talking about, but this is where I'm spending all my time. As you can see, I have 88 members. There's 12 spots left for this being a free community. This is where I'm answering people's questions. We're brainstorming, doing coffee chats. I'll be starting a Q&A on Tuesday or Thursday where basically I'm just giving out free personal training, first come, first serve. And this is the platform I'm trying to grow. This is where I want everyone to join who's over 40, looking at getting overall health, a lean body, and possibly some low-level biohacking. But it's not just me talking on here. I'm bringing experts on. I've got other people who are into the space who are contributing as well. So if you're at all interested, get in while you can, because as soon as I hit 100 people, I'm putting a price tag on it, and then we'll just grow from there. So other than that, let's get on with the episode. So this was the first gym I created back in 2011, Evolve Gym. You can see my logo there. That's my younger self and my sister-in-law, Chrissy. We call her Killer Chrissy. When I started, I basically started with the whole theme of doing semi-private training, because at the time, personal training after the 2000 market crash was just too expensive. So I started seeing the way things were going with, you need to share the cost of this. So I started up my first gym, started doing semi-private training, which definitely worked, cut the cost down to about 25 to 30 bucks a session. And then the one you're looking at my website right here is in Huntington Beach, but at one point I had 4 different spots all around here. So our style was circuit training. I typically had my gyms in warehouse. It was cheaper rent. We can go outside. You see a lot of TRX, weighted platforms, ropes, ladders, and just open space. So if you haven't heard me talk about circuit training, basically circuit training is blending all the different exercises together in a quicker pace, not HIIT training where you're going all out, but just casually walking to your next exercise. If you're working out chest, there's no reason you need to sit there and wait 1 minute, 2 minutes to rest to do a second set of chest. You just move on to a different exercise. So we typically do chest, leg, back, repeat. Every now and then add in some arms, shoulders, the smaller muscles, some physical therapy motions, or you saw the ropes and ladders. We would just kind of mix that up to give your body a little better acquainted to movement, balance, and just keep your heart rate up. And every now and then we'd throw a client in as a break, go 3 to 4 minutes on a treadmill at a high incline to keep the body moving. So out of all the gyms I've ever had and all the different trainers and other styles, pretty much across the board, all trainers agreed that circuit training was the best blend of strength and weight training with cardio to get the best bang for the buck. And at that time, I was in my late 20s and early 30s, and it was a lot easier to hold the type of body that we all desired. Out of all the different styles, circuit training always kept me the leanest, most athletic, and so on. And I still believe that today, with different caveats now for us over 40 people. As I was getting a little bit older, closing in on 40, started seeing a little bit extra weight gain. But not only that, I've always had issues with depression as well. Health and wellness professionals, a big thing was the keto diet. You can lose weight fast, you're happier, your fasting insulin gets better. All these different longevity markers started pointing more at the keto diet. Funny enough, now it's kind of pointing at the carnivore diet, and maybe everyone's attacking each other, but do whatever works for you. I've tried all the diets. I've tried Mediterranean, vegan, vegetarian, did them all for 6 months or more. At the time, at least, the keto diet did the best for me. I was done powerlifting and really cared about staying lean, having good blood work, feeling good, and the keto diet did that for me. So 5 to 10% of your food comes from carbs, hopefully complex carbs, veggies, or low glycemic carbs like yam, sweet potato. 25% comes from protein, and then 70 to 80% comes from fat, hopefully the healthy oils, olive oil, avocado oil. Since doing the keto diet for many years, I needed it for the amount of working out I was doing and bodybuilding, pushing that protein probably more to 35, 40%, and then taking the deficit from the fats. Super hard to be on, especially if you have kids with a pantry full of all your favorite snacks. And what it did for me was it completely wiped away my depression for years and years. Gone just like that, all from sugar. And the longer staying on this diet, you always wanted to change and be a little more relaxed. So I started doing that and noticing that none of that stuff came back. So it might have just been at the time, I just needed a good purge. And since then, it's been modified to a low carb keto paleo, where I'm probably getting 20% of my food from carbs, 30 to 40% from protein, and not as much from fats. I started adding more fasting with a keto low carb diet to make up for not being on keto all the time. So start hearing more about intermittent fasting to start. And as you can see, intermittent fasting is really dialing down the times that you're not eating. So all of us are fasting between dinner and breakfast. We're sleeping. Everyone's got a good amount of fasting. We're from there, right? Well, then it comes to let's push your breakfast a little longer, your dinner a little earlier, no snacking in between these meals because you have potential fat burning possibilities in between those meals if you don't eat and snack. What became apparent to me later was it's not so much the fasting, not just eating food. It's really just watching your insulin. Once you put anything in your mouth, goes into your stomach, as it gets dissolved into the amino pool, depending on how many carbs or whatnot, does a glucose spike. And that's what we thought was more important. What's more important is the insulin response. Once anything hits your stomach, insulin is now present in your body. All fat burning opportunities are now halted for the most part. I'm sure some nutritionists might say it's still going on. From what I've seen, every time now I'm monitoring when I eat and how tight I keep those eating windows, I'm seeing all the benefits. So if you can control your insulin, the lower the sugar, the better, which on a keto diet, I'm taking care of that. But not only that, stop snacking, having meals throughout the day. When I was in my 20s and doing sports and powerlifting, so you need all that, but you got to decide what's worth it to you now. Now I just want to be lean, healthy, good blood work, no pain in my joints. And so this fasting protocol on top of my low carb paleo keto diet just to start doing wonders. And this is about the time I hit 40 and really started seeing the weight come on. So my old routine wasn't working anymore. Keto was starting to slip away, not doing what it was doing before, but that's part of the aging process. So throwing intermittent fasting, really focusing on the insulin, not just fasting, having more fat burning opportunities throughout the day, throughout the night, started seeing my body lean out like you wouldn't believe. My fasting insulin, my cholesterol, everything on my blood markers, my doctor couldn't even believe what was going on. And at that time, I started doing longer fasting to go after the autophagy. Since I started experimenting with that, obviously been doing intermittent fasting for a while, kind of figured out all the pitfalls and being tired, making sure you're having electrolytes, always check with your doctor before starting something new. And then just closing in those fasting windows longer and longer, doing, as you can see on here, 48-hour fast, which is what we're all doing, 8 to 12 hours, then 12 to 16, 16 to 24. That started getting a little bit harder. You have to be really careful on those days if you're driving. So I kind of picked those in my at-home work days starting out. And then you can see the 24-hour plus, that's really where the autophagy is happening. I was low carb, keto-ish, not a perfect keto person. And that was fine. I had a keto meter, the breathalyzer that you can blow into, or I even have the blood prick test to see if you're in ketosis. I wasn't in ketosis that great because of my new style of diet. It kept me close enough to it to when I did these long fasting, I would pop into ketosis so fast. And now that's kind of my style. More balanced diet, carbs help with hormones, testosterone, but keeping it low enough to when I do my 36-hour fast, I've perfected that I love doing. I get the most autophagy. And then anything longer, it's just a wreck, at least for me. Always experiment and check with your doctor, see what works for you. Since doing the 36-hour fast once a month, my blood work, longevity markers, inflammation markers, fasting insulin, best they've ever been. And I did it in less than 6 months. I did my blood work again and my doctors couldn't believe it. All those things I had been hearing were true. I'm not saying that's for everybody. Every single person's different. Everyone's got a different microbiome, different issues, autoimmune things. You have to do your own fitness journey, hopefully with some help, someone watching you. But I just wanted to tell my story. So since I started doing more fasting, focusing on autophagy, one of the biggest things I learned from a podcast guest, she was a holistic naturopathic doctor. Going back to basics, all this stuff is helping the organ powerhouse of your body for fat burning, and that's the liver. This is stuff we learned in science class back in high school, and no one talks about it that much in the fitness world because it's not trending. Besides mitochondria, which I'll go into later, being the powerhouse of our cells, our liver is king, no pun intended, and helps regulate blood composition, process nutrients, as you can see, controls all these metabolic processes, breaks down alcohol if you're a social person. So that was kind of the biggest thing for me was in my 20s, my liver taking kind of a beating, but because of youth, being able to kind of offset that later to my late 30s, I started seeing a little hump above what I thought was my stomach. So your stomach and liver are kind of intertwined together. And even though the rest of my body was pretty lean, having that hump there and the lower abdominal fat, which is not happening for me. So after moving to more of this fasting, controlling, watching my insulin, talking to that naturopathic doctor, I started taking a supplement. Let me show you that one. And then she showed me the supplement by Pure Health. She had already left this company, but was still singing their praise. There's several other supplement companies out there that probably have the same ingredients. She also said it's great, but just focusing on it, find a reputable company and focusing on your liver. So now doing these longer fasts once a month, I started adding in this liver health. Then I just started seeing my liver in that spot, upper abdominal area, just start sinking in. All the years of beat down on my liver, having it reverse, lose all that visceral fat around it. At the time, my doctor in Huntington Beach could do ultrasounds of your liver. So not only have my liver enzymes always been good and in check, but you never know what your liver actually looks like and he had a ultrasound machine that could actually do it, and they had a grading system. So 1 being a baby, the best, 5 being cirrhosis. At that point, I was a 3, which he said everyone in America was, or worse. And then focusing on this, ended up doing that ultrasound later, going back to a 2. The naturopathic doctor, Dr. Holly, told me that whatever you're doing, you start cleaning up your life. Your liver, being that metabolic powerhouse organ, can completely restore itself. I don't know if it can go back to a 1, but for me to go back to a 2, seeing all the benefits, that's when I just started seeing a massive drop off of weight that I was collecting in my late 30s and 40s. So it's something to think about. And that was a huge success for me. Now I'm about 41. I was completely done with most of my gyms, just being a personal trainer in my last gym. All the different struggles with being a business owner in California with Governor Newsom and COVID, and I'll just leave it at that. Ended my reign as a multi-gym owner for Evolve Gym and back down to a single one, being a personal trainer and a lot happier. This company reached out to me on my podcast called the SmartFi Method. Their whole thing was train smarter, live longer, not get as beat up as doing all the crazy weightlifting we were all doing as personal trainers. This was the first step of AI coming into the market. They had all their different proprietary programs with AI. They could do DEXA scans and body scans. As you can see, all their different machines had diagnostics and could tell how much you were pushing. It could guess how much muscle mass you had along with that scanning machine. After doing a program for 6 months, I was only working out 2 times a week, 1 for strength and 1 for cardio. So really I was only working out 1 time a week, and I would do 1 more gym day at my own gyms where I work on biceps and shoulders, some of the stuff they didn't have at their center. But you would work out legs, back and chest. Then you would get on basically a massage pad. It would run freezing cold water on this pad and a blanket they'd put on you. It was supposed to help calm down the cortisol levels from your workout without deflaming what you were doing, meaning you did the workout. You want the inflammation to build up your muscles, but they had the science behind these cold blankets that would not deter that, but would still help you relax, get your cortisol levels down after the workout. But the main point of this was, with all the different stats they had on other machines, this was the first time that I saw that 1 10-minute workout a week was basically equal to 2 to 3 workouts in the gym using dumbbells. And this is if you're going all out on their machines, which I was. You're basically on this leg press for time under tension for 15 seconds, nonstop, as hard as you can go. And it was both the concentric and eccentric. As you were pushing on this leg press, it was fighting you. Then it was crushing you and coming back, and you had to fight it back. The trainer there could see on the graphs if you weren't fighting back or not. This was brutal. And after 6 months of doing this, you see your reports, you see how much stronger you are. I definitely saw doing negatives or the eccentric parts of exercise are just as important as the concentric size. I had the muscle to prove it with the least amount of work. All the reports they gave me showed my visceral fat going down. And that's when I decided that I just started my podcast. I was trying to find a niche. I was doing over 40. I did circuit training. I've got all these different hacks. And lo and behold, one of my best ones now was learning that less is more. Work smarter, not harder. So instead of paying a lot of money to this company, I just started implementing that same theory into my own workouts. Still circuit training, still doing the same type of exercises I've learned over the years from physical therapists, other personal trainers, sports trainers, you name it, but just slowing things down. Micro tears and mechanical load are not the only way to grow muscle. Time under tension can do it just as good, if not better. It may take longer. Mechanical tension will show muscle growth faster, but with time under tension, I'm still doing the same weights I was doing, focusing on mechanical load and beating myself up. Now I'm doing half the time in my workouts, slowing everything down. So more time under tension for that same workout than I was doing before. Now I've gotten so efficient, I only do 1 set per exercise and I keep floating around doing more, which I think is great because the more you can shock your body, the better. If you're doing an incorrect exercise that you didn't know about because you don't have a physical therapist, then you're not doing the same repetitive exercise day in, day out on all your workouts. So there's less chance on that. And because you're cutting the weight in half, there's less injuries to all your joints, but still seeing the hypertrophy and muscle gain, seeing the weight stay off and go down. So this was a big win. And then seeing their body composition here, they had a state-of-the-art one that did a 360 graph around you, would check all your visceral fat, your subcutaneous fat, your water weight, everything. And it's just cool to see best shape of my life at 41. And this was even after my back injury that I had as being a gym owner and moving gym equipment around. So just kind of finishing this up, going through some of the others that are notable successes and wins for me. Listening to a lot of podcasts, I came across this company, Biooptimizers, with their magnesium breakthrough. Using beetroot powder, beet juice, all these different things to help my genetically high blood pressure helped. Nothing has ever done as much as this exact supplement for my blood pressure. As you can see, their whole thing is a synergistic approach of all these different types of magnesiums together. I've tried all the ones that were supposed to be for high blood pressure. I can't remember which one of these was, and it wasn't doing that much compared to my beetroot powder. But this particular supplement with all of them, I think synergistically was what it took to throw my blood pressure all the way down to like 128/80, which for me was incredible. And I check my blood pressure daily, if not weekly, just to make sure. And I've held this for the whole time. Another one that I've been super impressed with was a representative from this company called LifeWave, and they use these stem cell activating patches using their phototherapy proprietary science. This is a patch that reflects heat from your own body during the day and stimulating peptides that do certain things. So their flagship one is one that stimulates stem cell growth naturally, one that stimulates cartilage repair, one that stimulates glutathione. I actually had a slap tear injury from a shoulder exercise that I was doing after going through my physical therapist and knowing that basically a slap tear does not heal itself. It scars over. It is not something that ever repairs itself on its own. I miraculously had just had this girl on my podcast, Nikki, explaining to me some of the anecdotals from her company using these patches, and did a combination of the stem cell one and the cartilage one, put it right on the area and did it for 90 days. And in 90 days, a 100% heal on a slap tear that there was no way that could happen. Took that back to my physical therapist. Since using those two products to heal my shoulder, I had seen the power of glutathione being over 40, and I can see my caloric expenditure go up, my HRV go up, everything, just all my biomarkers using technology go up from using glutathione that I was using from a different company. Went to LifeWave for theirs. Definitely took longer because it's more natural. It took probably 3-4 months for it to kick in, but now breaking records from the previous glutathione supplement I was using. So LifeWave is 2 successes on that one so far, and I am sold. Lastly, I wanted to talk about this new company, Tiny Health, for gut reports. If you listen to my podcast, a year ago, I went through my doctor. They had their test that they used through a company called Diagnostic Solutions, and then my doctor had to interpret the results. I decided to go the supplement route instead of the drug route to try to heal some of my gut issues. And that's the first time I've seen the power of doing these tests and seeing what your microbiome actually looks like. And I had great success after the supplements my doc prescribed me. Not only did I knock out the H. pylori infection, which was the reason I did the gut health test in the first place, but she knocked out a ton of my food allergies. Shrimp, beef, gluten seems to be almost gone. And chicken and egg, I had just gotten that allergy that year. Seeing after taking these supplements, all of those going away just tells you that some of these food allergies may not even be allergies. They may just be leaky gut or microbiome issues. God only knows what. And I've had 4 different allergists in my life. No one's on the same page. Even the last one I had said that we basically don't know anything about allergies. So like the best methods are, if you feel like you have an issue with something, to stay away from it. But fixing my biome a little bit, according to what we know now, wiped out almost all of them. So that was the Clip Note version of the last 15 years of my experience being a gym owner, personal trainer, moved to podcaster, moved to online trainer, and now biohacker. For those of you who are new, I just wanted to put out there a little bit of where I've come from in my fitness journey, the struggles I've had, and my direction of overall health, not just aesthetics, but really helping the over 40 crowd, because I do believe that at 40 is kind of when the metabolic switch starts turning down. Aging is really hitting us at that point, and it doesn't need to be a rough process. You just need to have someone that's been there before, actively working on it. Always check with your own doctor. And like I mentioned, check out my SKOOL. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the next one.